building is an international relief fund. Like very simply, we're just thinking about, okay, what can we do today as far as getting people together to actually make a difference using crypto and blockchain technology. And the idea behind Collab 19 is to create a DAO, a decentralized organization, for people to collaborate, pool resources, and distribute those resources in a way that is native to cryptocurrency that is unique, right? Like this is something that you essentially cannot do in other places in society. And the problem that this addresses really is, this comes from a book that I was recently reading called Just Giving. And it really highlights the issues with philanthropy and democracy today, where philanthropy is often used as a tool for essentially political signaling by the ultra wealthy. While this isn't always the case, and I'm not saying that philanthropy is all bad, this solution kind of builds in transparency mechanisms that are not found today in the philanthropic system. And it kind of gets broken down into, there's too much power in the hands of too few with the current larger structures of these larger organizations. And these organizations aren't exactly transparent as far as how the money is spent, which could lead to inefficiencies for the way that the money is like trickled down and passed between intermediary hands. So the solution is to use cryptocurrency to use an international value transfer system, leverage existing social networks. So we don't want to change people's behavior. We want to create these systems where networks already exist. And then use a transparent, democratic decision-making system to ensure a robust method for distributing funds that are collected in this way. Here's our tech stack. So right now, our bot has a Discourse and a Telegram. We're using Telegram as the main interface, and the Discourse is kind of the public forum where people are submitting proposals to receive funding. We're using Aragon and abridged smart contracts in the back end for both the account creation and fund management, and then the DAO management is Aragon. And then, of course, this is all built on top of the Ethereum blockchain. Quick roadmap. So we'll start with Telegram. We will try and create a scalable platform next, so that other people like James Samboris could come in and very quickly spin up one of these organizations at some fee that is reasonable for his organization, and then continue to iterate on different interfaces to reach a broader audience, reaching Facebook down the line. Our team comes from a deep history of DAO interactions and creations, and so we really understand this technology deeply, as well as understanding the pain points of onboarding users into Web3 and utilizing the Web3 system, and essentially abstracting MetaMask is kind of like what my team is really focused on. And we have a really strong path forward as far as the technical feasibility of this to make it happen. This is again a quick team page, and that's all I have as far as presentation goes. I can also go into a quick demo, and feel free to jump in. I'd love any feedback from the judges. Yeah.
And then James, I know you had reached out to me about the potential for other projects in this hackathon to raise $200 to $500 perhaps using the mechanism, which I'm interested to hear how that would work.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, let me pull up the actual bot interface that we've created thus far. All right. So this is the system. So this is like the main interface, right? And I think it works well. It has all the functions. I think the user experience obviously can continue to be optimized and refined. But just to get oriented, the way that, for instance, Vivek, as you're describing, the way that they could join and participate is through the community forum. We have a we have a discourse, like I mentioned, and the discourse is kind of where people will go and submit proposals. And we actually already have gotten, just the past week, 4 different proposals who are looking for funds to support their COVID-related projects. With each of these proposals, you can kind of jump in and you can check out, you see the sort of structure of this proposal. And then if you have any qualms as a community member, how are you going to transfer the crypto into fiat? How is this going to be immediately used? You can kind of clarify that through this portal and through the discourse forum. That's kind of what this is built for. If you go back to the bot, so once someone submits a proposal, through this process, the token members are able to access this chat room and can kind of discuss the proposal. And this is only for people who've actually donated to the DAO and received a membership token. So that's kind of special in that way, to be able to access that. Once a proposal has been decided to kind of like deemed like worthy, okay, we want to fund this. It seems like they have a robust system for actually accountability, as well as like getting the crypto to the people. They can submit first a signal proposal to ensure that the community is informed. And then the second step of the process is to submit a funding proposal. Each proposal lasts 24 hours, and it's just a one person, one vote system. So it's not plutocratic. There's no speculation on the DAO membership tokens or anything like that. Yeah, so that's like the high level of the broader system here.
Awesome. Thanks for showing the demo, James. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a couple questions. First, so I'm trying to think of how best to ask this. How involved are you in the marketplace? Are you vetting people that are trying to participate in the relief fund, or is this just like you've created the place, everybody can decide for themselves whether or not it's actually a relief fund, if it's actually a project, if like what's worth putting how much in?
Yeah, so is the question, so
is there an onboarding process, I guess?
Oh yeah,
for the actual funds?
Yeah, totally. So the onboarding process is you click this join membership button, and then it brings you to a page that you can actually onboard, and this is your account. This is going to be your Ethereum account that's been created for you, and then you could either onboard via like copying this address and sending ETH to it if you have ETH, or use Wire, which Wire is you can onboard with your debit card from both US and Europe, and so that is the onboarding process. Was that the question? Am I answering through it?
It's a good first step. Yeah. So. Yeah. Do you care if, like, so let's say that I go on and I think that this is a great way to basically fraudulently get money from people. I'm like, I've got this fund, I'm making masks, send me ETH, it'll be amazing. Are you guys doing anything to check and see if I'm actually making the masks, or is that just buyer beware?
Yeah, totally. That is a great question. So we have a case that we are doing due diligence on right now. Where someone has been taking videos of like delivering food to poor people or impoverished areas in Brazil. At the same time, someone in the DAO, so they submitted a proposal. Someone in the DAO actually flagged it and was like, "Who does anyone know this person, and do we know if this is legitimate or not?" And it is a difficult question to answer, and we're still kind of like going through this process of how do you know if that person is legit or not, sort of in their process. At the same time, James Simboris, I know this person both physically and through the internet. I have seen the work that he's doing, and I've interacted with other people who he's working with. That seems to provide some legitimacy to his project. So there is a bit of a human network social layer as far as like filtering like fraud. And that is something that I think we need to be extremely careful with as a community, to like make sure that we aren't giving to fraudulent, people trying to take advantage of the system. And then the other piece that kind of we might sort of think about inputting is maybe we only give to legitimate nonprofits or people who are on the ground and like have a track record, essentially. I think people who do have a longer track record, it's easier to give to, essentially, right? So, but that is mainly up to the community to decide in the nature of decentralized governance.
Cool.
Great, thank you.
Awesome.
Great question.
I had another question. I'm guessing that the answer is going to be similar to the answer to Shay's question, but I'd love to hear a little bit more on how your group plans to kind of like, I guess, walk that tightrope between preventing gatekeeping, but also for making sure that the community isn't just full of, say, scammers. So like, particularly in DAOs, but I mean, outside of crypto, you see this in a lot of like online communities. There is a lot of kind of like in-group versus out-group kind of prevention from growth, which leads to the prevention of growth. And while I do agree that a lot of the different technical moving parts are super interesting, and it's super aligned with how a lot of the crypto native community kind of just interacts with one another, like Telegram, DAOs, ETH, etc. I worry that the barriers to adoption are very much aligned, like for this specific app, are very much aligned with the barriers to adoption for just crypto in general. So then your app is in this weird holding pattern where you have to kind of like cross that Overton window where a bunch of people, and sure, there's an argument that that's kind of already happening, but like the majority of people who would like relief or would like to kind of access this grants management DAO already has like a Discourse account for some reason, already has a Telegram, has an ETH account, has spare money to kind of like fill up, like kind of load up their wallet. So like, I'd love to hear kind of how you guys are, like what framework you guys are kind of thinking about how to either bootstrap in the short term just to kind of get around some of those limitations, but then in the long term, kind of make sure that you guys are well equipped to kind of broaden access, mitigate Sybil attacks, and make sure that there's like a healthy way to add people into the community, but not but make sure that you're not adding like 50 people who are just going to exit scam like 6 months and 3 days down the road.
Yeah, that's a great question. And, you know, Sybil attack has been something that we've been very thoughtful of. At the same time, you know, and there's a relatively robust like process to get to a Sybil attack for this system, right? Like you have to create multiple Telegram accounts, you have to interact with the bot, and then you have to upload an amount of ETH to that Telegram account that you've created within this bot system. And then once you upload ETH into that, then you have to donate to the relief fund. So there's like a bit of we feel like that should be sufficient friction to prevent a serious takeover. Because once you do donate, you then receive a C19 token, which is the membership token, to be able to vote with the DAO. At that point, you can then potentially submit a funding proposal to take all the money and put it in your account if you have like the majority vote, right? We do have like some emergency shutdown procedures that we could implement where we could just pause the voting and essentially not allow people to access that to sort of if we do notice that happening. So as far as Sybil attack, we feel like that's relatively robust. But at the same time, I think the other point is how are we scaling and how does this actually work? And I think that we have solved a few critical pieces here. So MetaMask generally deters about 90% of any individuals who have to come to it, to download it, to interact with an app. 99% of people are like, no, we're not going to do that. With this system, all you have to do is press start, and then this account is generated for you. And so in that case, we have kind of eliminated the MetaMask issue. The next question then is, how do you get money into this account? And Wire is a decent, it's a decent application at the moment, but there are still like, you know, if you're in New York, you can't use Wire. If, you know, it's limited in terms of its places in the world that you can use it. So as far as scaling, we're investigating the ability to actually use Stripe and then shift from an ERC20 to an ERC721 and use the NFT as a membership token that actually allows for voting and other aspects, because you can purchase 721s with an NFT.
James, don't mean to cut you off, but we're gonna have to cut right now.
No problem. But yeah. Thanks for the questions. And if you want to jam more on this, I'd love to, you know, dig in more and answer my Telegrams. I can throw it in the channel here.